Good evening, everyone. This is Miss Kirsten from Bullitt County Public Library, here with you to give you another episode of Night-Night with Nichols. Ooh, look at the woods. Aren't they wild? Ooh, I would love to explore those right now. But I made a promise that I was going to read you another story, and I'm definitely going to do that. Did you know that words disappear if we don't share them when we talk? Oh my goodness. If we don't write them in our stories, if we don't read them in our books, if we don't use words, they can be forgotten. And if they're forgotten, they disappear. Oh no, not good. I'm going to read you a story that will illuminate the quest to save the most important pieces of our language. Wild words. In the story, a little girl named Brooke has a very special grandmother that teaches her how to do this and bestows upon her a very big honor. However, Brooke doesn't call her grandmother grandmother. What do you think she calls her? And what honor do you think her grandmother bestows on her? I don't know. Let's find out. Tonight, we are going to be the keeper of wild words, written by Brooke Smith and illustrated by Madeline Cloper. At the end of a long cinder lane surrounded by meadows and pine trees and sky that wrapped around and back again, Brooke ran up to her grandmother's door, swung it open, and she belonged. Mimi, I'm here! Brooke called her grandmother Mimi because she wasn't just a grandmother, she was a grand friend. Mimi had been waiting. She'd been sitting at her desk all day, distracted by a hummingbird, a wasp's nest, a red-tailed hawk hovering overhead. Mimi was a writer. She wove words into everything that mattered. Look at that. Nice. Brooke was so excited to be visiting. She needed Mimi's help. Tomorrow was the first day of school, and Brooke had nothing for show and tell. Her summer had been wonderful, but she didn't have one special thing to share that her friends would always remember. Look at her hugging her Mimi. Nice. But today, Mimi needed Brooke's help too. She had something important to ask her. I'm afraid some of my favorite words are disappearing. Some of the wild words that I have known and loved my whole life. Wow. How do words disappear? Words disappear if we don't share them when we talk, if we don't write them in our stories, if we don't read them in our books. If we don't use words, they can be forgotten, and if they're forgotten, they disappear. I need someone to keep them safe. To help remember, I need you to be my keeper, the keeper of wild words. Can I wear a crown? No, the keeper doesn't need a crown. She just needs to keep her eyes wide open and be ready to see and hear and feel all the wild words. That way, she'll always remember them. I think she's still like a crown. Look at those. Just some acorn, apricot, beaver. Ooh, there's quite a few. From sunup to sundown, we'll walk and run and walk again, sit and wait, listen and touch until we find every word on the list, or every word on the list finds us. I'm ready, said Brooke, and they were off. And sure enough, as soon as they stepped into the morning, wild words were waiting. A wren sang a good morning song, a little brown bird with a voice like an angel, sitting up high, looking down, just waiting to say hello to the world. Can you find the wren on the branch? Look at him. Nice. Do bet his song is beautiful. Bunches of violets spread underfoot. Sweet perfume filled the air, almost making Brooke dizzy. Can you smell it? Their little purple faces smiled, inviting the day to begin. Poppies in the corner of the yard suddenly popped open, paper petals reaching to the sun. Look at that. Beautiful. And bushes filled with blackberries, just like the ones Brooke had eaten for breakfast. Hundreds still waiting to be picked and enjoyed for dessert. Do wild birds dance like this every morning? Those look tasty. Along the way, Brooke picked up an acorn that fell from a mighty oak. Big towering oak tree, little nut with a tiny brown hat, smooth round shell. She put it in her pocket to remember. Up ahead they saw light reflected in a round mirror of water. The pond. When Brooke scooped up a handful of water, silver minnows swam circles in her palm. Now a pool. Who ever knew she could hold the wild? A minnow is a silver little bitty fish. Then splash! Silence broken. A beaver jumped in, and then under he went, swimming towards his den, climbing up on the other side of the pond, and then disappearing from view. It's sure busy around here, Brooke said. Always, Mimi answered. Bushels of mint surrounded the pond. Mimi picked stems and rubbed the leaves in her fingers. Brooke picked a leaf and put it in her mouth. Fresh, sweet, tangy. From the ground, from the earth, she could taste the wild. Then one last visitor waddled by. Green velvet head, bright yellow beak, Mr. Drake, Papa Duck running. Quack! Run! Lift off! Wings out! There he goes! I like her face on the mint. Where next? The meadow! Just follow the trail, cut deep in the tall grass. Brooke ran ahead, so free, so free, so free. A butterfly, a monarch, diving in the breeze. Now you are just like me. So free. Bright buttercups welcomed them, yellow petals glistening in the sun, a wild carpet of light and beauty. Quick, make a wish, said Mimi, holding out a dandelion. Fairy dust sitting on a stem. Blow on it and the seeds will fly, your tiny wishes in the air. I love blowing on dandelions, don't you? At the top of the meadow stood an old willow tree. The shade of the willow was like a dear friend. Mimi had known this tree forever. What a perfect place to have lunch. She took out small sandwiches and apricots picked from her yard, round, fuzzy fruit, sweet as could be, the juice dripping with every bite. Rows of lavender lined the field below, filling the air with a magic perfume. Look at that. See all the lavender? Just then, overhead, Brooke could not believe her eyes. There's a bird cloud flying above us. Oh my! The starlings are back! Such an amazing wonder. Thousands of birds swooped, darted, and turned, somehow always staying connected. Then they floated away as mysteriously as they came. Amazing. Finally, they wandered over to the dense, dark woods. Brooke had always been a little afraid of the forest, but now part of her was wild, and she couldn't wait. A light rain started to fall, a sudden summer shower. The rain made the smells of the forest come alive, and all the plants glisten. The ferns, with their magnificent green feathered leaves, curled up and then spread out like a fan for everyone to notice. I really love ferns. What else do you see? Mimi asked. Brooke looked across the forest floor, and sure enough, nestled in the needles was a doe, a deer curled up like the fern, fast asleep in the shadows. Quiet, quiet, peace and quiet. Walk slowly by, we'll let her be. In the woods, things appear around corners, tucked deep. Ahead, they heard a rustling. Stop! Walk back slowly towards me. Right then, a porcupine popped out and ran up a tree. Porcupines, if they're scared, will let their quills fly. Surprises abound in the wild. You do not want to get hit with one of those quills. Very sharp. Mimi had one other surprise. You know, my favorite wild word is not on the list. It's standing right in front of me. A gurgling sound was coming from a clearing, light flickering on a glassy surface. It was a small stream, a brook. Dancing, sparkling, singing, it knew exactly where it was going. Joyful thread of water cutting through the trees. The last wild word is you, Mimi said. You were named after this tiny stream that your mother always cherished. One could only imagine such a perfect name for the keeper of wild words. Mimi, I never told you what I needed help with, said Brooke. What is it? Mimi said. I need something special for show and tell tomorrow. And now I have it. The night sky would soon be painted, stars gleaming overhead, a beautiful wild curtain closing on the day. Mimi's wild words were safe. They were shared and remembered, understood and deeply loved. When the wild wraps around you, it stays forever in your heart. And that's the end. That's wonderful. I really enjoyed that. And just look at the woods and think about the wild words you could find and you could keep. And remember, say them often, write them down, share the words with everyone so they don't disappear. You can be your own keeper of the wild words. Think about that when you're going to sleep tonight. What kind of wild words would you be the keeper of? I can think of so many. Well, sleep tight, rest well, and remember, we at BCPL love you to the moon and back. Have a good night.